Hi, everybody. It's Jeff with SI Restoration, Emergency Water Damage Cleanup, Mold Remediation, Biohazard Cleanup, and Reconstruction. So, today I get a question from customers that I'd like to talk about, and that is when you have water damage and the walls get wet, do you cut them out? I've heard people, they'll tell me I've heard people cutting walls out, and I've heard situations where they have holes in the wall, and situations where they don't touch the wall at all, and they dry it out through dehumidification. So I kind of want to get you a straight answer. So first of all, if any question happens in how our industry works, as I've said in other videos, you always rely on the IICRC S500 guidelines. Need a copy? Contact me. So that's usually your general rule, but there are times and situations where common sense does come into play. So to give you an example, if you have a water damage in a residential home, and let's say it came from the water heater, and water went all over the place and kind of got the walls wet. Well, unless it's been a couple of inches of water, normally the drywall itself will absorb the water. I love this. I remember when I first started, 30 years ago, and I was in a home, and the insured said, the customer said, "Well, excuse me, the water just kind of stopped at the wall, but didn't go past the wall." So we had to go on the other side of the wall into the closet where there was a million things in the closet, and after we pulled everything out, and the client was not happy with that, but they were happy after I pulled everything out and then realized it was wet in the carpet in the closet next to the wall that she said or had no water going through because the wall had stopped it. Well, lesson: water does not. I mean, walls do not stop water from coming through. It's sort of a little bit of a barrier, but they absorb the water. The other issue that you have to remember is when you see a wall and you think, "Gee, the carpet's wet, but the wall looks fine." Well, that's because there's paint on the wall, and the paint hides the water going up. Eventually, the water absorbs into the paint. Excuse me. But that is something you have to remember, is that just because the wall looks fine doesn't mean the wall is fine. It may be moisture inside the wall, which of course causes mold and other structural issues. So the question is, do we cut the wall, or do we put holes in the wall, or ignore the wall? So it depends, like I said before. If you have a water heater that busted and it's an inch or less of water, normally you take the wall base off the wall and drill holes, probably the size of a quarter, and you can basically blow air movement into the walls. Do you need a dehumidifier? Sure, in many cases, but it's really, really small. I'm a big believer in air conditioning systems that will do the dehumidification for you. But listen, it doesn't hurt to have a dehumidifier in it. So anyway, the question then becomes is, when do you cut the walls out? Well, first of all, for two factors. Number one, you look at the wall. I mean, if it's damaged, cut it. It's not worth saving. The second thing is did the water come from a second floor or a floor above that floor flowing down? And the reason is that if it's in a commercial space, in a residential space, your studs, your wall studs are wood. So it's not going to hold water as much. It'll hold it through absorbing of the material, but it's not going to hold it as a reservoir. The commercial setup is where you have metal studs. Now at the bottom, it looks like a cup going all the way down that holds up the rest of the studs, and that is called a C cup at the bottom. It's basically a swimming pool if you fill in water, okay? So what happens is people don't realize that either you have a large water damage and it goes above the C cup, or it comes from an above, I shouldn't say second floor, any type of floor above and flows down. It will fill up. So the problem is how do you get the moisture out? Because what happens is that the air movement will only dry into the holes and basically dry the drywall. It's not going to go inside the reservoir, the C channel of the studs. So the answer is you cut. You cut the drywall, and then you suck the water out of that, And then the smart thing to do is, the bad thing to do is to just have somebody go in there and just jaggedly cut a long wall just to do that, because then you're going to have a drywall go cut a straight line to put in drywall. So the general rule is do 2 feet. You can take a 4 by 8 piece of drywall, cut it in half, and then you have 2 feet up, and it's a clean cut. If the restoration company does the 2 feet cut, it saves a lot of time and aggravation, and it looks a lot more professional. Now, the second thing is to worry about is insulation. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've run into situations where I've gone in after the fact of another restoration company, and they say, "Look, I don't understand why it smells. It just stinks in this office." And come to see that the restoration came in and they took the wall base down and they put holes in the wall. When I say holes, a drill hole underneath the wall base line. The interesting thing is that there was insulation inside, and they neglected to think about that, because you have to realize, as a professional, you have to realize that pretty much all outside walls of a building or a house have insulation in it. And depending on how the building was built, sometimes interior offices have insulation for different reasons. So the point is, you have to determine if there's insulation, and insulation will not dry in place. I have tried personally, it does not work. Okay, so you'll have to cut the wall and pull the insulation out of it. So those are the reasons why. There are probably other reasons. I'm not going to spend too much time in here, because it's hard to keep everyone attentive that they watching these videos. So I do appreciate it. There are more to this, but there's obviously more things to this. But please do me a favor, and if you have any questions or comments about what I do, please let me know in these videos. Again, my name is Jeff Cohn with SI Restoration, emergency water damage, mold remediation, asbestos removal, biohazard cleanup, and reconstruction. Thank you.